Thanks, Brandis. Early in the program, we discussed cybersecurity and Israel, and now we're back with Representatives Brad Schneider, Mike Quigley, and Jan Schakowsky. We will remind you that we invited every Republican member of the Illinois Congressional delegation and some from surrounding states, but none accepted our invitation. And as always, we thank you all for joining us again. I want to pick up with some political talk. Congressman Schneider, the GOP is set to vote tomorrow to remove Congresswoman Liz Cheney from Wyoming, remove her from leadership because of her stance against President Trump and against the lie that the election was stolen. Is this a done deal?
Everything I've read, it's a done deal, but I'll take issue. It's not because of her stance that they're removing her. It's because of the rest of the party's stance supporting the lie and continuing to argue that the election was stolen. It wasn't. It was a legitimate election. It's been called by the security teams the most secure election in our nation's history. And what we're seeing from the Republicans and across the country is a threat to our democracy. It's why we need to fight so hard to protect the franchise, to ensure that everyone in this country that has the right to vote also has the ability to vote. It's why we have to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and H.R. 1, the For the People Act.
And those have passed out of the House, as I understand, and they're stuck in the Senate. And this comes as many state legislatures, Republican-controlled legislatures, are passing bills to restrict voting. Congressman Quigley, what does Trump's grasp, not only Trump's grasp, but at least in the GOP, the fealty to the stolen election narrative, this bogus narrative of a stolen election, what does that portend for the midterms and for your ability to have any ability to get anything done?
Look, I think it makes it a lot more difficult. It's interesting, what will the Trump reach be when he's not on the ballot? We saw in the off-year election, there was less turnout by pro-Trump supporters. We'll see what happens there. I think it's, though, a mistake to say this is all done because they're afraid of Trump voters. I think a lot of them believe that they're true believers, and the people who vote for them are true believers. My bigger concern is that there's 55% of the American public, for example, that thinks the attack on January 6th was really by Antifa. They were dressed as Trump supporters. And I don't know how to get past that misinformation and how we try to combat that to get people to understand how to vote in the democratic process.
Congresswoman Schakowsky, the direction that the GOP has signaled it's going here, does that mean that there's no future for someone like Adam Kinzinger, your colleague here from Illinois, that's also taken a hard stance against lies about the election and against Trump?
Well, the number of truth tellers is really sparse right now in the Republican Party, and I believe it's sheer cowardice. I mean, some of our colleagues know darn well that this is a big lie. And they are just so afraid to stand up to Donald Trump. But I was actually surprised to see that his approval numbers have fallen below 40%. That is Donald Trump's, now in the 30s. So I am hoping that actually the American people who give Joe Biden such high ratings and his programs such high ratings, we have bipartisan support for all of these bills. The jobs bill, the family bill, they are very, very popular. But the idea of trying to negotiate with Republicans after Mitch McConnell has said his one priority is to stop this, the Democrats from getting anything done. But it doesn't stop them from praising as if they supported some of these bills. They're going around, they're going to be at all the ribbon cuttings. They're going to be taking credit, and they voted no. And I think it's incumbent on us, the Democrats, to make sure that the American people understand they are not on your side.
All right,
they are not on the side of the people.
Let's move on to something that does seem to have some bipartisan cooperation. Congressman Schneider, George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It's something that is being negotiated on both sides of the aisle. What are the bipartisan notes of agreement here?
I think it starts with the need that we need to make changes in the way policing is done in the United States. What we saw last summer on every TV and on every video device, the murder of George Floyd, was not a unique circumstance. We've seen it time and again across the nation, and the call of the nation to act upon this and change that. So I was very proud that in the House, 1 month to the day after the murder of George Floyd, we passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It, as you know, died in the Senate in the last Congress. We reintroduced it in the 117th Congress and again sent it to the Senate. And it looks like Karen Bass and Tim Scott are making progress. And I'm hopeful that we can do something that will improve the trust between police and the public, and make sure that we're providing everyone in this country, wherever they live, whatever they look like, wherever they come from, the security and safety they all deserve.
And speaking of security and safety and trusting police, an IG report came out kind of confirming what everybody that's watched this saw, that something went horribly awry with the Capitol Police, with the protection of the Capitol on January 6th during those riots. Congressman Quigley, there's set to be another hearing tomorrow on the January 6th riots in Congress. What do you expect to learn from this hearing?
Look, I think what's important for the viewers to understand first off is that these hearings are taking place without a 9/11 type commission, which is a real shortcoming. The fact is the Senate Republicans refused to go along with that because they didn't think the results would comport with the big lie. But I serve on 3 committees that are going to be doing this investigation. Tomorrow's hearing on Core, Intel, and Appropriations.
Do you have the kind of power that a 9/11 style commission would have?
Well, obviously we have subpoena power, but will we get people like Leader McCarthy, who would have a lot to say about this, willing to testify? I don't think he will. So, and I also think it's harder to coordinate when you have multiple committees as you would with a 9/11 commission, which did a very good job, and I think we're all safer because of its results. For those of us in the balcony or in the chambers that day, I think a lot of us knew what we'd like to see with these conclusions, but we need to bear them out, and what the reforms have to take place to keep the Capitol and indeed the entire country safe.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. And our thanks once again to Representatives Schneider, Quigley, and Schakowsky. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.